You're standing in front of a Viking assembly, the thing, hundreds of people watching, and you're about to find out what your crime is going to cost you. No lawyer, no jury of strangers, just your community deciding, right now, exactly how much of your life you're about to lose. There were no prisons in Viking Age Scandinavia, no police, no modern courts, and that didn't make the punishments lighter. It made them stranger, more personal, and in some cases, worse than anything a modern legal system would ever hand down. These are 6 of the harshest punishments you could face in the Viking Age, ranked from bad to almost unthinkable. And the worst one on this list isn't death. Death was the most obvious one, and the first stop on this list. But Viking justice wasn't as simple as break a rule, lose your life. Law codes existed, and most offenses were actually settled through compensation or fines rather than execution. Still, certain serious crimes could end that way. And here's where things get complicated fast, because killing someone rarely ended the problem. It usually started a new one. If you killed someone's family member, their relatives had a choice: demand compensation or come for you directly. And that second option is where the second entry on this list begins. Something arguably more terrifying than execution itself: the blood feud. Picture surviving the initial punishment for a killing. You think it's over. It isn't. The dead man's family now has a reason to come after you. If they kill you in return, your own family may feel obligated to retaliate. Then their family retaliates again. 1 death becomes 2, 2 become 3. What started as a single argument could spiral into a conflict between entire family lines, stretching across years, sometimes generations. Icelandic sagas are full of exactly this pattern: feuds that consumed multiple generations of the same families, each retaliation justified by the one before it, until nobody left alive could quite remember which death had started the whole cycle in the first place. Blood feuds weren't an official punishment handed down by a judge. They were simply what happened in a society where honor, family loyalty, and revenge were tangled together so tightly that the law sometimes had to step in specifically to stop these cycles from consuming entire communities. But if a feud didn't come for you, your wallet might. Breaking the law in Viking Age Scandinavia could get expensive, fast. Instead of prison, the legal system often demanded compensation, paid directly to the victim or their family. And the amount depended heavily on exactly who you'd harmed. Some laws placed different values on people based on social status. Under Gotlandic law, the compensation for killing a free Gotlandic person was 24 marks of silver, roughly 4.8 kilograms. Imagine being told you haven't been sentenced to death, you haven't been enslaved, but your entire family now owes kilograms of silver because of what you did. And if you couldn't pay, things could get considerably worse from there. Viking law also got disturbingly specific about the human body itself. Lose an eye in a fight someone else started, there was a specific compensation value attached. Lose a hand, a different amount. A foot, another. Even injuries to the tongue had a defined legal price, and some law codes went further still, assigning different values depending on which finger was lost, or whether an injury was visible when a person was fully clothed versus hidden beneath their clothes, since a visible scar carried greater social cost than one nobody would ever see. In effect, Viking law turned the human body into something close to a price list. But there's an important nuance buried in that. These laws generally weren't prescribing mutilation as punishment, cutting off a hand as a sentence. They were establishing how much was owed when someone else caused that kind of injury, which tells you something genuinely interesting about the whole system. The goal wasn't purely to hurt the offender. It was restoring some kind of balance between victim, offender, and both of their families. Then there was the punishment that could take something silver couldn't buy back: your freedom entirely. For some people, punishment meant becoming a thrall, a slave, and this wasn't remotely the same as serving a few years and walking free. You could lose control over where you lived, what work you did, and who controlled your life going forward, indefinitely. Some thralls had been captured during raids, others were born into it, and in some documented cases, slavery was directly connected to punishment. The National Museum of Denmark notes that people could be forced into slavery for crimes including murder or theft. For someone who had once been free, this wasn't just losing your freedom for a set period. It was losing your entire legal and social status, permanently. And then, At the very top, worse than execution, worse than a feud, worse than fines or mutilation or even slavery, there was outlawry. Imagine discovering the law simply no longer applies to you. You can't walk into a court expecting protection. Your community has no obligation to defend you. You've been pushed entirely outside the structure that used to hold your life together. In medieval Scandinavian legal tradition, particularly Icelandic law, different degrees of this existed. Some meant exile for a fixed period, often 3 years, giving a person a chance to eventually return once tempers had cooled and compensation had been settled. The most severe version meant permanent outlawry and total loss of legal protection for life, with no path back into the community whatsoever. If you were declared a full outlaw, you had to leave. You might have to survive completely outside the community that had once protected you, cut off from trade, from allies, from the family networks that Viking survival genuinely depended on. And if someone killed you after that declaration, they could potentially avoid any legal consequence at all, because you were no longer considered a protected member of society in the eyes of the law. You weren't just being punished at that point, you were being erased from the legal community entirely. And in a world where survival depended almost completely on your family, your neighbors, and your community around you, being cut off from all of it at once could be nearly as dangerous as death itself, just slower and often lonelier. So the next time you picture Vikings as warriors who solved every disagreement with an axe, remember they also built one of the most surprisingly intricate legal systems of the medieval world. And in that system, the harshest sentence wasn't always death. Sometimes it was simply being told you no longer belonged anywhere at all.